This Film is Lit, the podcast where we finally settle the score on one simple question. Is the book really better than the movie? I'm Brian, and I have a film degree, so I watch the movie, but don't read the book.
And I'm Katie. I have an English degree, so I do things the right way and read the book before we watch the movie.
So prepare to be wowed by our expertise and charm as we dissect all of your favorite film adaptations and decide if the silver screen or the written word did it better. So turn it up, settle in, and get ready for spoilers, because this film is lit. What would you do if all of your crushes suddenly found out how you felt about them? It's To All the Boys I've Loved Before, and this film is lit. Well, welcome back to This Film is Lit, a podcast where we talk about movies that are based on books. This week's episode, sorry we didn't have a prequel. We were both sick and out of town.
Yeah, sick,
in combination.
Out of town. Didn't really have any interesting ideas for a learning things segment.
All kinds of things kind of combined for no prequel episode. Mainly, you were in bed sick all day when we would normally record the episode.
Yes.
That was the biggest thing.
I was asleep.
Yeah.
All day.
And then I got a bit of a cold after that, so it just kind of ended up getting scratched. But, you know, also there wasn't, I did the research on the movie. I found like 8 fun facts, and they were like, who made the movie? So it wasn't that interesting anyway. So anyways, we're going to get on to our normal episode. I think we got a good one here. It was an interesting movie, and we'll obviously talk about how we felt about it throughout the course of the movie, or throughout the course of this episode in the review. My brief overall, it was cute.
Yeah, it's cute.
It's cute. It's not amazing, not bad, just kind of okay, pretty good, and cute. So that's like the five word answer for how I felt about the movie. But we're going to get into, we have all of our normal segments, right? I think.
Yeah.
So we have all of our normal segments, including Guess Who for the first time in a while.
The triumphant return of Guess Who.
The triumphant return of Guess Who. But first, we're going to get to... No, we normally do Guess Who first, or do we do Let Me Sum Up first?
We do Let Me Sum Up first.
Okay, we're going to get to Let Me Sum Up.
Let me explain. No, there is too much. Let me sum up.
The movie did make some changes, which obviously we'll talk about, but I think the basic... like plots are similar enough that I don't think we both need to do a Let Me Sum Up, because I think they'll be the same thing.
I'm not going to plug my ears this time. Go for it.
All right, so the basic plot of this story is that Lara Jean is a junior in high school, and she's kind of shy and quiet. She hasn't really had a whole lot of like experience. And she does this thing kind of...
social experience.
Right, social experience. And she does this thing kind of like keeping a diary where like when she has a really big crush on a boy, she writes a love letter to him and she keeps them all in a hat box inside of her closet. Mm-hmm. So there's love letters to a couple different people. But one of the kind of most important pivotal ones is that there is one to her older sister's boyfriend, who was also a family friend. So she liked him before he was dating her sister. Yeah. But obviously that's something that she really does not want to ever see the light of day.
Right.
But one day she discovers that somehow her letters have been mailed. Mm-hmm. So everyone that she wrote a letter to now has that letter. Yeah. Including her sister's now ex-boyfriend, because they break up close to the beginning of the story. Yeah. And also, like the most popular boy in school, who is also recently broken up with his longtime girlfriend.
Well, maybe in the book, in the movie, they're still technically together.
At the very beginning.
At the very beginning, yeah.
Okay. So what ensues are some kind of rom-com hijinks where Lara Jean and the popular boy, whose name is Peter, pretend to be dating, partly like from her perspective in order to like throw off her sister's boyfriend. Yeah. So that he doesn't like want to talk to her about it.
Yeah.
And also partly to make Peter's ex-girlfriend like super jealous.
Because he wants that's his head
right.
side
That's
of the
his
deal,
motivation.
basically, is he wants to make her jealous so that she'll get back with him.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So hijinks ensue, sort of rom-com hijinks.
Yeah.
And throughout the course of the story, they, of course, eventually develop feelings for each other. A lot of other stuff that we'll talk about happens.
Some drama.
Yes, some drama happens. And at the end of it, she ends up...
Spoilers. If you haven't seen the movie.
If you haven't seen it.
If you want to watch a cute, fun rom-com right here, go for it. It's an hour and 40 minutes. It's on Netflix. Like I said, it's pretty fun. It's pretty cute. I don't think you'll be upset that you watched it, but it's also not like a must-watch in my opinion. Unless you really love this genre, then I could see how maybe, potentially.
So she ends up like realizing that she has legitimate feelings for him. And then the ending of the book and the movie are slightly different. So we'll leave that for later.
And we'll get to that later. That was Let Me Sum Up. We're going to get to the triumphant return of the game show portion of this podcast called Guess Who?
Who are you?
No one of consequence.
I must know.
Get used to disappointment.
Okay.
Real quick, I'm going to explain how this section works in case you're joined us with Lord of the Rings or something like that and you haven't been listening and haven't... I mean, we played Guess Who in the first Lord of the Rings episode, but let's say if you've the last few, you've tuned in lately and you forgot how it works or you're new or whatever. The way Guess Who works is that Katie is going... I have not read the book. This is also the premise, but this is in the intro. I have not read the book. Katie has. Katie's going to read the descriptions of certain characters from the book, and then I'm going to try to guess based purely on my movie knowledge which of the characters she's describing from the movie, which crossover characters she's describing, and see if I can get them correctly. See how the movie portrayed each of the characters and what they changed and what they didn't change. So that's how this segment works.
So we like to see maybe how accurate
how
casting was.
Yeah.
All right.
And the character design.
All right, so I have 5 here. Okay. He looks like the kind of guy you'd expect to be good at computers. The kind of guy who calls comic books graphic novels. Brown hair. Not a special brown, just regular brown. Green eyes that go muddy in the center. He's on the skinny side, but he's strong.
Okay. Just going on this one without knowing, because I don't know what other descriptions they're going to get to eventually, but my first inclination, and boy, I may forget some character names. I think it's Josh, which I think is the right name for the neighbor who is dating Margot.
Yes.
Is that his name?
Yes.
That's my guess.
That's correct.
Okay. Because my only other real guess was who's not really in the movie, which we'll talk about, is the just because of the graphic novel part and be good at computers, is the Model UN kid. But we see like half a second of him in the movie, and then he shows up at the end. But it's spoilers. But yeah, so that was kind of what I figured. And now we don't really get much of his character in terms of like what he's into in the movie. We don't really know if he's into like comics or computers or anything. He's just there. Shows up in a few scenes, but I can see. Yeah, he's got brown hair and he's skinny but slightly muscular, I guess. So nailed it. All
right. So we've got a description. This next one is a little bit different because Lara Jean is a romantic. All right. He has the look of a handsome boy from a different time. He could be a dashing World War I soldier, handsome enough for a girl to wait years for him to come back from war, so handsome she could wait forever. He could be wearing a red Letterman's jacket, driving around in a Corvette with the top down, one arm on the steering wheel, on his way to pick up his girl for the sock hop. His kind of wholesome good looks feel more like yesterday than today.
This one's very simple, or seems very obvious to me that this is Peter Kavinsky.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the movie nailed him.
He's...
Unless because I know I will say this now. I know one of the criticisms of the movie is that I believe in the book, either I don't know if it's described or people assumed or what, that more of her love interests or the main characters were of Korean descent or something like that. Is that not a vibe you got from? Because I remember reading criticisms about the movie that there was no guys of like Korean descent or whatever. or Asian American descent?
No, there's not in the book.
Really? Okay, well then maybe I misread an article, or maybe it was an article. I don't know. I could have swore I read an article about people being upset about that, but I could be wrong.
I mean, I think there was some criticism about that, but that is something that the movie like got
just
right.
Adapts directly from the book.
Just adapts directly from the book.
Okay.
There's Josh, there's Peter, and there's
the other
Lucas.
Lucas, yeah.
Who in the book is described as biracial.
Okay.
But I guess they never technically say like what races.
What races he could, is biracial, yeah. And which he could be in the movie. They don't ever discuss it.
They don't ever discuss it. So
okay, I was just wondering. But anyway, so so that being said, disregarding that, because again, we don't really know for sure what any of that was supposed to be or whatever. That nails it. That the guy, I think, has a very timeless handsomeness about him. He also has a scar on his face that is like. Very like I feel like they read World War I soldier part and they were like, "Yep, find this kid who's got a scar on his face, like he just came home from the war or something." Like, yeah, he totally fits that. Where you could definitely see, like, he's one of those guys that you could, especially with his hairstyle and stuff, it's like kind of generic enough that you could put him in a World War I outfit and like take a black and white picture of him, and he would look like he would fit in, be a very handsome soldier, or he could wear modern clothes and like exactly what the book description says. So they nailed his casting, although he's old, the actor. That's a common problem in this movie, which we'll get to. But he is like, the actor was like 25 or something instead of 17 or 18.
Which is also not uncommon in teen movies.
Not at all, no.
She's petite, with fit arms, and sunny blonde hair, the color of margarine.
Boy, okay, so without knowing what other descriptions we're going to get here, because this could be 3 characters. My phone thought I said Siri. What did I say? I said something that must have sounded like Siri because my phone turned on. I don't know what I said. This could be 3 characters, or 2 at least. My guess is that it is, and now I can't remember her name. So Jen is Peter's girlfriend at the beginning of the movie, and I don't think it's her. She has like lighter hair. It's like brownish in the movie, but she is petite, and that could fit her. But her hair's not margarine colored necessarily. It's not sunny blonde.
Yeah, it's more like a brownish blonde.
Yeah, but so the other character is the cousin of her and her like seemingly best friend of Laura Jean Laura Jean, right?
Yeah.
In the movie. And I can't remember her name. What's her name?
Her name is Chris.
Chris. So it's either, I would go with Chris or Jen, just based on main characters that matter. It could also, I think that's the only characters it could be. Both of her sisters have dark hair, like her, like Laura Jean. So it's probably not one of her sisters. I'm gonna go with Jen. But I don't know for sure. But I'm going to go with Jen.
It is Jen.
Okay.
You're doing really well.
I'm crushing it so far.
You are. All right, next one. She's blonde, but peroxide blonde.
Okay.
And she's taller and has broad swimmer's shoulders.
This would have made it easier for me if you had done this one first, because that is not Claire. What did you say it was?
Chris.
Chris. Yeah, that's Chris.
Yeah, that's the best friend.
Yeah. Or little Amanda Seyfried. She looks like a young Amanda Seyfried. She's got that face.
Like-esque. Yeah, where her eyes are like giant.
Giant and a little far apart.
Yeah.
And like, she looks like young Amanda Seyfried.
Yeah. I don't disagree with that.
Or really young, what's her name from, she reminded me of this character, or this actress a lot, in Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. She's also Miracle Max's wife in what is that actress's name?
Oh shoot, it's
you know what I'm talking about.
It's Carol Kane.
Carol Kane.
Yeah, she
looks like a young Carol Kane, like her eyes and her hair in this movie, and like the way she, especially because the makeup she does, she has a really dark eye, like wing or
could
not.
do like a movie about a woman growing up and cast her and Amanda Seyfried
and then Carol Kane. They really could. They could do Boyhood and not have to wait 20 years to film it. Yeah, they really could. Because the whole time I was like, man, she either looks like a young Amanda Seyfried or a young Carol Kane.
Yeah.
I think that's the right actress's name, but you know what we're talking about. People know
it's
who
that, or it's
about.
something very close to that.
Yeah.
All right, last one.
4 for 4.
He has sandy hair, clean cut. His cheeks are rosy, just the way I remember. They still have that fresh scrubbed wholesomeness that makes him look so young. He's wearing khakis and a light blue button-down with a navy crew neck sweater.
I don't know this character's name, but that's the Model UN kid when he shows up at the end of the movie.
It is the Model UN kid.
Yeah.
Who has the best name ever.
What is it?
It's John Ambrose McLaren.
Do they say that in the movie? They probably do. I just
do.
didn't remember. Yeah.
And she always calls him by his full name in the book, which is another thing we're going to talk about.
I have a note about this.
I know, we're going to talk about it. She always calls him by his full name, but like I would too if I knew somebody named John Ambrose McLaren.
Yeah, that's a heck of a name. All right, 5 for 5. I will say it was pretty easy. I think if you had, you could have maybe mixed up. I don't know if you could have mixed it up the order much to confuse me, because I think no matter what you did, I was going to get it. Because putting some of them earlier would have made it even easier. So I don't know.
These are in the exact order that they appear in the book. I didn't try to trick you this time.
Yeah, because sometimes that makes it easy because they're also the order they appear in the movie. So it kind of like my memory triggers in the same order. But sometimes, though, it can make, like, if you had put the peroxide blonde first, I would know who that was, I feel like. So, like, that would make it easier to guess the other girl, but, yeah.
But you got that right anyway.
Yeah, I got it right anyway.
So it doesn't matter.
So there you go. All right. 5 out of 5 for Guess Who. How did you guys do if you watched the movie and didn't read the book? Hopefully you have 5 out of 5. Let's move on. I got some questions. We're going to do, was that in the book?
Nicholas Flamel is the only known maker of the Philosopher's Stone.
The what?
Honestly, don't you two read?
All right. There's a fair number of questions that I have about this that I want to know if the movie added it or if they stayed faithful in their adaptation. First question, and this was almost a lost in adaptation, but the movie does kind of explain it, but I'm just interested to see if it's the same in the book. Are Laura, Josh, and Margot, which if you're not super familiar, Laura is our main character. Josh is the neighbor crush of Laura and the boyfriend / ex-boyfriend of Margot, who is Laura's older sister. Which I know she's older sister, but are they all slightly different ages in the book? Because in the movie, I was a little confused at first about how old they were all supposed to be, because we see them and Margot and Josh are dating.
Yeah.
So I assumed they were the same age, but then we get a flashback to Laura and Josh as kids, and they seem to be the same age. And now ultimately it makes sense, because what we find out in the movie eventually is that, they don't ever explicitly say it, but it kind of parse it out, is that Margot is a freshman in college or going into college. Josh seems to be a senior and Laura seems to be a junior, which makes sense then that they're all within a year of each other, stepping up. And so it kind of makes sense that she has a crush and they hung out together, but it also isn't weird for Margot to be dating Josh, the senior and a junior in high school. It all kind of eventually added up, but I was a little confused at first. Is that how it is in the book?
Yeah, that's exactly how it is.
Cool. Because, like I said, it was just for me at first. I was like, what is going on? What is this? I was just confused, but it all made sense. I think the thing that made it more confusing for me, and we'll get to this a little bit, is that Margot, the actress who plays her in the movie, is looks like she's 25 or in her early 20s easily. And but then they do say she's going to college, but she looks so much older than them. And then I Googled it because I had to look up, and I was like, I knew I recognized the actress, and I looked her up. That actress was born the exact same year as me.
Yeah.
And I'm 31, which means she was like 28 or 29 when this movie was made, playing a 19-year-old.
Yeah.
And again, she looks good. Like, she doesn't look old or anything, but she doesn't look like an 18 or 19-year-old.
I had a note about that. It's Janelle Parrish.
Yeah. Which if you're...
she was in Pretty Little Liars forever, and she's one of those actresses that like frequently gets cast as teenagers, even though she's older, which, as we've said, is not uncommon.
Period.
For a movie with teenagers to have them be played by 20-somethings. And my note was literally like, she still looks good, but she's starting to look too mature.
Yeah, she just looks
play
too
a
mature.
teenager. Yeah. She doesn't look old.
No, she doesn't look old.
She just looks too mature.
She just doesn't look like a teenager. Yeah. And like 4 or 5 years ago, like if she was 23 to 24, 25, I think she could pull it off a little bit better. And we'll talk. I mean, we might talk about it again, but like the actress who plays Laura is not 17 or 16. No. She's like 19, but she pulls off that teenage, middle teen age.
She doesn't look as worldly.
No, she looks. she. And we'll talk about it. That's one of my favorite. That actress is one of my favorite parts of this whole movie. But anyways, so yeah, it was a little bit strange for me. It's also a little interesting because, and I don't know, you know. But because there's arguments to be made in multiple ways, but that actress, she's of mixed descent. I think she's Canadian, but she's Chinese American or Chinese Canadian, playing Korean American in the movie. And it seems to me, I guess maybe as a bankable name they went for, because it seems to me you could find a Korean American actress.
Are we talking about Margot?
Margot, a Korean American actress who's roughly the right age.
Right.
She's not the main character. It's not, you know what I mean? It's not like...
Well, yeah, and I'm wondering if maybe the motivation was a familiar face.
A familiar face of like...
Because there are, like,
and they're
all
aiming
of the
for
other...
that target of the kind of audience that is into Pretty Little Liars is the target audience of this movie.
Yes.
So, like, you get it.
So, yeah, maybe just a recognizable face. But yeah, I was watching it and I was like, were there no other...
Yeah. Well, it's also...
Not even Korean American, just like Asian American actresses
well, you
in
say
general.
That, but that's also a thing that gets problematic in Hollywood a lot of times, is that they just sort of like... Yeah. They're like, well, you're Asian American, so you can play any Asian. Like, you know what I mean?
No,
like,
I know. And I definitely... And I think there was some kind of backlash about that because we talked about that with Crazy Rich Asians, that there was discussion of like, well, we have certain different ethnicities playing other ethnicities because to Americanize their Asian act, you know, right. So to us, without knowing much better, it's just like, nah, they're all the same, you know. It's not, but like, my point was just like, is this like the person that we're always going to go to here? Yeah. Like, is there no one else that we could cast?
Yeah. I think it's definitely one of those things of like, we're looking for this audience. This is an actress who is in a very popular thing that's a similar audience. So we'll throw her in this role because she doesn't look completely out of place. And I will say, if you look at her and Laura Jean and her sister, they don't look like wildly. They look close enough-ish to be sisters in the same way that like vaguely feasibly like white related. People look. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like feasibly maybe related. Well, that doesn't mean anything because in so many things. I mean, when you look at siblings, half the time they don't even look related, so it doesn't really matter. True. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I say that, and then it's like...
I don't really look anything like my sister.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So many times siblings don't look that related, so it doesn't really matter. But, yeah, and whatever. I just thought it was strange. All right, moving on. Does Margot have a weird thing about Laura cleaning up her room and about cleaning rooms in general? She gets on Laura a lot a couple times in the early part of the book about cleaning her room, because she needs to be a good role model for their younger sister. And also, Laura goes on to explain that Margot this is a thing she does, that when she moves, she's moving to college, she's moving to Scotland, go to college, and she's like getting rid of all of her old stuff, sending it to Goodwill. And Laura makes a comment in the movie about how that's part of her personality, is that when she's moving on to the next stage of things, she just throws away everything from like the previous stage of her life, basically. Is that like a character trait of Margot in the book?
The cleaning the room thing, I don't recall that coming up specifically in the book. Margot is supposed to be kind of like a parent type of a role because she like took over when their mom died and like took over a lot of that kind of responsibility. especially since their dad's a doctor, so he's
gone
working a lot.
Yeah,
So I think that was like the movie's way of showing that.
kind of a parenting.
Yeah, like a parenting thing.
Yeah, I can't be around to take care of things anymore.
So you have to clean your room.
But they also made an explicit point in the book movie, like I said, of it being a character trait of hers of throwing away things from her past.
That is not in the book.
Interesting. I don't dislike it. I don't know if it necessarily pays off in any real way in the movie.
Yeah, I don't think it does.
That I recall, but I could be wrong about that. So, okay. This is a little interesting. In the movie, there's two specific moments that I recall of sort of strange, surreal humor. One of them is that she's trying to eat lunch. Laura Jean is trying to eat lunch, and she doesn't have anywhere to sit because her friend's not there, and some other stuff has happened. Oh, Josh, who she would normally sit with, is awkward because of the letter thing, maybe? I can't remember. And then so she goes to sit in the library, and she's in the library, and she starts eating her lunch, and she has like carrots or something, and it's loud and crunchy, and then everybody looks at her, and she sees a sign on the wall that says no loud foods or something like that, and then she leaves, and which is a strange scene. I mean, it's played for a joke, but it's a little bit strange. But to me, it feels one of those things that's like, obviously no library would have a sign that says no loud foods. It might have a sign that says no food, but like no loud foods. So it's a little bit of like a surreal thing to kind of heighten her level of
like feeling awkward.
Yeah. And then there's another moment later in the movie where she literally falls off this second story of their building off the roof and lands in a bush and like goes, ow, and then gets up and runs away. And they're two particularly like surreal moments,
kind of
cartoony moments that are the only ones in the movie, and it doesn't come back anymore. And I was thinking like, okay, that could be interesting if they kept going with that at times throughout the movie. They kind of just abandoned it after the second one. But is that any element of the book that type of humor?
No. Okay. At least it didn't seem to me like it had that kind of sense of humor. And neither of those specific things are from the book.
Okay. Because I wondered if like maybe in the book, if it was like, if there was some, because what I could see them doing in the movie is if in the book it was some element of her imagining these scenarios happening or something, you know what I mean? Like you hear her imagining it, or I don't know. I'm trying to, and then the movie kind of just does it and then uses them again as a sort of surreal humor element to the movie. But yeah, I figured maybe it was just a movie ad, which it would have worked better for me, this particular thing, if they just would have kept going.
I think if they had kept going with it, it could have been like an interesting, like almost like heightened sense of like awkward things happening to her.
And I think you can do that. I think you could. I think they could have done that and have been successful. And I think it would have worked. I think that this like they wrote those in and then they forgot about that and they just like wrote the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
And didn't spice any more of that in. And it's just a little strange. Okay. Does the little sister have a dope feminist necklace?
No.
Oh. Which we'll talk about the little sister
never
more.
Mentioned, at least.
That's what I meant. We'll talk about the little sister more. She's a fun character, and it's her. My problems with her character are not unique to this movie. That type of younger sibling character is a romantic comedy, especially a teen romantic comedy trope.
Yes.
The like overly aware, overly intelligent, overly comical younger sibling is a classic. Like Juno, I think had Easy A had like right, her little like adopted brother was like similar. It's a pretty common thing, but she did have a dope feminist necklace.
And cool. Like a wise beyond their years kid is a common rom-com trope in general. I think
it is. This line specifically, I thought was a very funny line. Again. We'll talk about this more in general. Some of the dialogue in the movie we'll talk about my feelings on it. But it's still funny. The line is, if you need me, this is, they're in gym class and the gothy, not gothy, but like the alternative, her friend, what is her name? Chris. Chris. Her friend Chris, they're like running and then Peter Kavinsky comes up to talk to Lara Jean and Chris is like, comes up with an excuse to like leave them alone, and she says in the movie, "If you need me, I'll be in the nurse's office with a migraine, googling Justin Trudeau shirtless," which is a hilarious line. It kind of captures some elements of high school. I feel like the faking a headache to get out of gym class type of thing,
and it tells us a lot about her.
I like it as a line. It's a very good character line for her. It's, if not slightly unreal, if not feeling very obviously written by a room of like professional writers versus like a thing a 15-year-old kid would say, but like, okay. Is that line in the book?
No.
Okay. It felt like a writer's room line to me, so that doesn't surprise me. Speaking of, overall, does the book suffer? Because this is maybe my biggest complaint about the movie. Probably. Is the movie really suffers from the quote-unquote kids don't talk like this, or like this is what 30-year-old writers wish they talked like in high school type of thing. Especially the 11-year-old, especially Laura's younger sister. What is her name? Kitty. Especially her younger sister really, really suffers from this, but in not only talking, but just like her emotional maturity as an 11-year-old. I'm not saying that 11-year-olds like this don't exist. It's just, she's the trope of a incredibly emotionally mature, incredibly intelligent and articulate 11-year-old who just, is a trope and a cliche at this point. But she's not the only one. They all kind of have this. Almost all of the actors and all the characters in the movie have this. Even Laura Jean and the main characters, I think at times they all feel more like, and again, maybe this is me, and maybe I'm either misremembering my childhood, or I did not have a typical experience of being a preteen or a teenager. Is that they all talk like college age kids and not like high school age kids to me, or like. To me, a lot of the times, the conversations they have and the emotional maturity with which they approach a lot of the stuff that happens in the movie, not all of it, but a lot of the stuff that happens in the movie and just the dialogue they have a lot of times to me feels very much, if you're writing this for college age, sure, like I can buy this. But for like these 16 and 17-year-olds, it just feels a little bit false, like a little bit elevated into a way that 16 and 17-year-olds don't really discuss topics. But I could be wrong.
So I have some thoughts on this.
Okay.
This is somewhat an element in the book.
Okay.
Not so much with Kitty. And she's also, I'll talk about it in a minute, but they aged her up a couple years.
Okay. So you're saying not so much with Kitty in the sense that she's not as tropey as she is in the movie?
No, definitely not.
Okay.
I think that in the book, this is mostly just an issue with Laura Jean. But I do think that kind of trope, that like kids don't talk like this trope, feels more natural when it's first person point of view and you're reading it.
Okay.
Because it's more like you're inside that person's head, I guess.
Right.
And I also think it can be kind of explained away through like personality.
Yeah.
Because she is like a romantic and she's a big reader.
Yeah.
And that kind of thing. So we can kind of explain it away through that. Now, my other thoughts on this are that I think we do end up with this kind of trope more often in movies than we do in books. And I think that's probably the case because there is a team of writers working on it.
Yeah.
So there's a room of people bouncing ideas off of each other and editing each other's scripts and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, it depends on the project, but usually at least to some extent, there's definitely some collaboration going on.
Rather than just like one person sitting around thinking up dialogue on their own.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that does happen with scripts, and I don't, you never know exactly how each script was, but there's a lot more of, there's a chance that there was a writer's room and there was people sitting around punching up the script and tweaking dialogue to make it funnier and that sort. You never know, like, you never really know. Like, I mean, I guess you would know, you could go in and talk to the people and figure out if there was. But like, I wasn't able to find any research about, how the exact production process of this movie. But very often that is the case, that there's some writers in a room that punch up a script.
Right. No, I don't know exactly how this script was written. That's what I surmise is the reason that this tends to be more of a thing in movies than it does in books, in my opinion.
Yeah, that makes sense.
The other kind of counterpoint-ish that I will put to that is that the absence of kids don't talk like this is Bella from Twilight.
What do you mean?
You've seen the Twilight movies.
It's been so long that
It's every other word and pauses and like awkwardness.
Yeah.
Which is true, but also like kind of painful to watch.
Yeah. Yeah. It's tough to strike a good balance. Like, cause it's really tough balance to strike between how kids actually talk versus what's interesting to watch on television. I think I'm trying to think of examples. I think Stranger Things does a pretty good job of not feeling like there are elements of it, obviously, at times, and it's because of the heightened nature of the show in general that, with the fantastic elements, are already kind of dealing with stuff that kids don't have to deal with. But their general like interpersonal relationships on the show always felt pretty like reasonably like their age. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because they're like movies like Easy A and stuff also feel very similar in that they're like kids don't nobody's this quick-witted and sarcastic at every turn, and like it's not even like the quick-witted jokes and punch-up jokes and stuff to me. It's just the emotional maturity with which these people have these like deep conversations about like their parents and dead parents and stuff. And I know people like I'm sure I had those. I know I had conversations like that as a 16-year-old, but they were not only rare, I feel like, but they were also with very specific people. I feel like in a lot of these movies, they're also not near. There was no way they were as eloquent as the people. Which again, I get it. It just feels, you know what I mean. It just feels like
I think, and especially with a rom-com, I think we are watching a heightened sense of reality, because
that's true of all movies. To be fair, like
adults don't talk like that either.
Adults don't generally talk that way either, but they more closely talk that way.
Yeah.
Than a 15-year-old does. You know what I mean? Like, I guess is my point. But anyways, yeah. Okay. And again, I calling it out in this movie, but it's not this movie. It's almost every single teen movie ever made suffers from this. Is Lana into stuff from the 80s? Laura, sorry, not Lana. I don't know why I have Lana. I think
Lana is the actress's name.
Oh, that is the actress's name.
You did that in here.
I'm sure I did that a couple times because I had the IMDb open to look at like the different names and stuff. And sorry, Lana plays Laura. Is Laura into stuff from the 80s? Because she's in the movie. And it was a bit of for a second, it was a bit of an eye-rolly, cringy, like I'm not like other girls moment. Like I like. Because it's like this is set in modern times, and she's like, I like 16 Candles. What? You've never seen 16 Candles? Yeah. But then he does it to her about Fight Club, so it balances out, and I got what they're doing a little bit. Because then especially when it's Fight Club for him, it made it feel very much like, okay, I see what you're doing, writers. Like they're both cringy. Like that's kind of the point. Because there's no way that kid understands Fight Club.
No.
There's 0% chance. He seems like a very nice kid in this movie, but there's no chance that he understands the subtleties of Fight Club and what that movie's going for. What that story's going for. If you want to know what Fight Club is trying to say, you can listen to our episode. I don't remember which number it was, but
way back when,
but we talked about Fight Club and about how it's not what most people think. Not most people. What shitty, toxic people think it's about.
She does like vintage clothes in the book. There's like a specific mention of like liking vintage clothes, but there's nothing specifically about like stuff from the 80s. Okay. And 16 Candles is not something mentioned. That comes up.
Okay, cool. Do they write rules for their relationship? So this is a cute scene. I think it might telegraph the end a little bit too much. In general, I think my biggest problem with the movie, or one of the problems I have with the movie, not biggest maybe, I don't have a big problem. I have a lot of little kind of problems that just kept it from being great, in my opinion, as opposed to just pretty good or okay. Is that their chemistry is so off the charts, and they flirt so hard in every scene they have together. It's immediately obvious from the first time that Peter Kavinsky and Laura Jean talk to each other that they're going to end up together. And so, I mean, I like that they're doing that with this story. I think the movie would have benefited from having that build a little bit more over the course of the film, as opposed to just immediately me being like, oh, well, they clearly make sense together and they should just be together. And the first time I noticed it was in this scene where they write like rules about their like fake relationship and what they should do or how they're going to go about it. Is that scene in the book? Yes,
they do write up a contract with rules.
Okay. And then, cool. We'll get to my next question here very shortly.
Yes.
In a couple questions. Is the book obsessed, and we talked about this earlier, is the book obsessed with saying like all of the names of the people in the movie? So this happens several times in the course of the movie. Mostly Laura Jean. They say Laura Jean all the time, but they also say Peter Kavinsky all the time. She says Peter Kavinsky every time she says his name, pretty much.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned earlier that
John Ambrose McLaren.
John Ambrose McLaren, she says his full name every time. And I think there's other instances of people I know there is, because I wouldn't have written this note otherwise. I just can't remember exactly what they are. Of people saying like full names of people. Like the dad says Peter Kavinsky several times. Which I think is more of a dad thing, which kind of makes more sense to me, but whatever. Anyways, does the book do this?
All right, so yes, somewhat.
Okay.
Laura Jean's name is just Laura Jean. She just like has two names.
Okay.
That's why everybody calls her Laura Jean.
Okay. Fair enough, I guess. To me, that's a first name and a middle name.
Like a Mary Ann or Anne Marie.
But those are normally hyphenated.
Or Mary Jane.
And hers isn't hyphenated.
Well, I don't make the rules, babe.
That's fine. I'm not saying they're always hyphenated, and that's fair. I guess for some reason, I don't know. I guess for some reason, maybe because I looked at IMDb and maybe it says on IMDb like Laura Coat, whatever her last name is. It didn't have her middle name, so like.
Oh,
maybe that's how the credits are written.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so maybe it felt weird in my head that they're calling her Laura Jean all the time, when actually that is just like her name.
That's just her name.
That makes sense. Okay.
And then the main character that it happens with is Peter Kavinsky. I mean, aside from John Ambrose McLaren, but like I said, you would just always say John Ambrose McLaren.
Yeah.
Because that's like a Civil War name.
Yeah.
But Peter Kavinsky, they do call him by his full name a lot in the book. Mostly Laura Jean. And obviously it's from her perspective, so we're going to get a lot of that. I think this is maybe just to like emphasize that he's like the big man on campus, kind of.
No. Yeah.
So, I mean, that's what I would say.
Yeah, and that makes sense to me, because I totally get it. I guess it was just I noticed it enough that it felt a little weird to me, because her saying Peter Kavinsky and there's something about it, and I don't know how to word this, about her calling him that feels very I'm trying to think of another example. It feels playful, and I don't know how to word this. It makes sense for her character to call him that, because she's not really friends with him, and he is like the popular guy. And her calling him Peter Kavinsky feels like it makes sense. I guess I don't know how to describe it. It does totally make sense to me, and I get why you would write it that way. I get the sort of the weird implicit playfulness and like almost not reverence, but like, because there are people that I've known that I always called by like their last name for whatever reason, or sometimes both names. It's rare, but I'm sure I could think of somebody if I thought about it long enough. And so I kind of get it. To me, it feels, it's funny because to me, it feels like a specifically flirty thing to do.
Yeah.
to call somebody by their first and last name, almost to annoy them in a like flirty way, if that makes any sense.
No, I totally get what
Do you
you're
see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like I could see that. Anyways, okay.
And there also is a thing in the beginning of the book where she talks about how he used to be Peter K, and then he starts going by his last name when he like becomes cool.
Yeah.
So we could factor that in as well.
Yeah. Okay. So we talked about it a couple questions ago, but this is another one I want to talk about. Is the ending as telegraphed? And now the ending basically does still end exactly how I expected it in the movie. There's a little bit of stuff going on. But so the main, basically from the word go, as soon as Peter Gavinsky gets her letter and then they decide to do this fake relationship, they flirt so hard in every scene and they have such good chemistry together. And the movie leans in so hard the whole time to them being like perfect together, that it just feels, I felt a lot of times like, what's the tension in this? Now we get some tension later on towards the end of the second act, beginning of the third act, you know, where that turn is at the end of the second act. But it just feels so obvious to me that like, oh, okay, she's just clearly going to end up with him. Like, sure, maybe we're going to get some tension between them at some point that's going to put things on the rocks for a bit. But ultimately that's... Because, like, to me, where I thought the story was more going to go was play much more of the dynamic between her and Peter and Josh.
Okay, yeah.
And then the movie kind of just plays her and Peter, and Josh is like shows up in 2 scenes.
Right, yeah.
And then basically at the end of the movie goes, yeah, you like him, go be with him, which is cool. And I like that little, it's not a twist, but it potentially kind of is in the movie, of Josh just being like, yeah, you should be with him, because they almost set it up like he wants to be with her, but then the movie doesn't go that way, which I liked, and we'll talk about maybe. But I guess in the movie, it just felt so obvious to me, and I was like, okay, worst case, they're gonna break up for like a few days and then realize they belong together, which is exactly what happens. And so I wonder what the main, how that compares to sort of the main tension and dynamic in the book.
Okay, so you called it with the book. There's a lot more tension with Josh.
Okay, that makes way more sense.
There's much more tension between him and Lara Jean, and there's more tension between her and Josh and Peter, and like that whole dynamic. Now, I will say the book and movie endings are different.
Yeah.
So the book ends with her starting to write Peter a letter, like realizing that she has legit feelings for him, and it ends with her starting to write him a letter.
And
now,
that's probably what we get at the end of the movie.
Well, she does write him a letter.
That's what I mean. Is that book, like, that's, yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
They probably just took that and expanded it, and that's what...
Right. Well, and there are 2 more books in this series, so I haven't read book 2. I don't know, but they might have just dipped into book 2 for that, like, final scene where they're on the lacrosse field. I have no idea. But also, I mean, it doesn't really bother me, like, kind of knowing where it's going to end up, because it is a rom-com. So, like, I know that it's headed towards a happy ending where they end up together, because that's the standard for the genre.
Yeah. That's fair. I'm not so much that I felt like I was upset that I knew where it was going, so much as I was just expecting there to be more dynamic tension between her, Peter, and Josh, because that would have been... and that's why I call the movie cute as opposed to, like, really interesting and good. I think if they'd explored that dynamic more and the tension between her old crush on Josh and this new thing with Peter, it's just in the movie all we get pretty much is, oh, Peter's great. He's a great guy. He's great. He's A+. He gets along with her sister, their family. She gets along with his family. He gets along with her family. He's cute with her little younger sister. They get along great. They're great. Like, it's just great. Clearly, they love each other and they're great together. They should just be together. Josh is like a side, like he's set up in the beginning as the more important character, and then is by the end of the movie not important at all. Other than to tell her to be with Peter, which felt like cool. Like, I like that they give him that, or that's where his character goes. Does he do that in the? I don't know if I asked this or not. Does he do that?
No.
That's not in the book? Because I thought that was cool, because I thought the movie was kind of going a different direction. But, which I don't know if I have a note about. Well, let's talk about it now. So in the movie, I legit thought that they were going to potentially turn Josh into like a weirdo. Into like a creepy, possessive weirdo. And that he was going to be the one that took the video of her. Oh. Yeah. Because the one, we never find out in this movie, do we? Who did it?
Oh, not for sure. No.
No, because what's her name? Jen insists it wasn't her.
Yeah.
I thought we were going to find out that it was Josh, because we didn't know whether or not he was on the trip. I mean, he could have been. He's a senior. He could have been on the trip. I thought we were going to find out it was him and that he did it to break them up because he wanted to be with her. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And I was like, whoa, I thought it was going to take a dark turn with him and he was going to be like this weird, like he actually does like her and he thinks that Peter's not good enough for her and blah, blah, blah. And it would have been weird, but like I thought that was where it was going to go.
Yeah, that would have been a really different turn.
Yeah, I kind of thought that was where it was headed. And then when it didn't go that way and he just kind of also turned out, I thought it felt more realistic and less like Pretty Little Liars, like drama-y. But but it also just like, I was like, okay, cool. His character was just around. And again, some of my problems with this movie aren't necessarily problems with it's some of those elements I actually kind of like, that it subverts sort of traditional what I was expecting from sort of a teen romance drama in terms of like this guy, just her friend that at one point seems like maybe he's going to be kind of a creepy, like not creepy weirdo, but just is going to be kind of possessive and weird. And like, maybe this is going somewhere else. Oh no, he's just a dude who just is her friend and is like, yeah, you like him? Cool. Go be with him. Like it just, there's no drama there, but cool. There's no drama there. Like I kind of like that and stuff like that. I kind of enjoyed, about the movie, but it also wasn't what I was expecting. And I think the trailer maybe did a slight disservice to this. I was fully expecting a little bit that the mystery of who sent the letters was going to be more central to the story. Yeah. From the trailer. Yeah. Again, that's just from the trailer because I watched the trailer. I hadn't read the book, obviously, or anything like that, and I didn't know anything about the story. And I felt like the trailer made it seem a little bit like maybe there was going to be more mystery and intrigue and like her trying to figure it out. I was expecting it to be a little more like Love, Simon in like the mystery element of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I gotcha.
That was kind of what I was expecting, is a little bit more of like a mystery romance than like just a straight up like rom-com, which is what it is. Yeah. Because it's very clear from the beginning that it was her sister. To us, the audience, we're like, oh, it was her sister. Like, we know right away. And so, whereas in Love, Simon, it's a mystery to us who the secret letter writer is, and then it gets twisty-turny, and it is this, you know. Yeah. So, I was expecting more of that, and what we got was more of a straightforward, like, just, like, sweet love story rom-com thing, which is fine. It was just, I think maybe the trailer maybe did a disservice to me of what I went in expecting. And again, it didn't ruin my enjoyment of the film. I still enjoyed it. I just think maybe I was expecting a different type of story than what ultimately was delivered. So yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought to expect that.
Yeah.
Because I read the book.
Again, yeah, having read the book, sure. But if you just watch the trailer, and especially because in my head, I was kind of comparing it, like the last like teen rom-com I saw probably was like Love, Simon. Yeah. So I was like kind of comparing it to that, which was more of a mystery. And this one just wasn't. It was like, all right, fine. The line specifically, this specific line is in the movie. It's in the trailer. It's a funny line. Her dad is telling her to have safe sex, and he gives her a bunch of condoms. And he says, don't forget to have fun. And she turns around and says, yeah, well, I have a lot of rubbers for that specifically. Which is a very funny line. Also feels like a writer's room line. But was that in the book?
Not in the book.
Because it was a writer's room line. Cool. Moving on. Do they go on a ski trip and stay in a hotel by themselves with the seniors as chaperones? I don't understand who the chaperones were. In the movie, they literally go on this retreat to a weekend ski resort trip, and seemingly, because it's the one guy who's the friend of Peter, right? who she met earlier in the movie, who shows up and he has all the room keys. And he says, they told me to make sure you slept in your assigned rooms, but I don't give a shit. And he throws the keys everywhere. And I'm like, is he in charge? What is happening? He's a student. Were there no adults or teachers or what was that? Is that in the book?
Well, they do go on a ski trip.
Okay.
But there are definitely teacher chaperones in the book, which, like, I mean, that makes way more sense. Yeah. Because, like, what school would ever?
Never.
Not
I was
in a million,
so blown away.
years.
I was like, what is happening here? Like, they just completely, there's not a single adult in any of those scenes. There's not one.
Yeah.
It was so strange. Okay. Because like I said, seemingly just some random senior is in charge of all of the students. And I'm like, what? No. Okay. And also, the senior that they put in charge is like one of the jock kids from the lacrosse team or whatever, I assume, because he's friends with Pete.
They didn't even put a nerdy kid in charge.
Yeah, they didn't even put somebody like Laura Jean in charge. I mean, she's a junior. It's just, yeah, all right.
They should have got Margot.
Yeah.
Put her in charge.
Well, she's in
I know, she's
college.
in college now. She could have done it, was my point.
Very strange to me, and I was just like, well, this can't be what happens in the book. It's not. Is the second act low point? So this is at the end of your second act. This is when your characters are at your lowest. This is when all the fallout happens, and then they have to fix everything in the third act. In this movie, it's because of a scrunchie and a miscommunication. Mm-hmm. Is that what happens in the movie?
The scrunchy
book,
thing.
sorry.
The scrunchy thing is not in the book.
Okay.
The low point is Lara Jean is upset that Peter either started the rumor about the hot tub or didn't do anything to stop it from spreading.
Does he ultimately have the same moment in the hallway where he, or that moment similar to in the hallway in the movie where he yells at everybody and tells them that nothing happened? Because I liked that moment in the movie. Mm-hmm. Okay. So it was one of those things where it felt a little trivial to me. And I always, not trivial. I always kind of, those kind of plot points, and it's a rom-com classic. This movie doesn't shy away from playing the tropes. But the sort of miscommunication where I heard you went to your old girlfriend's room last night. And he goes, no, let me explain. And she doesn't let him explain. And then they fight and they're upset and break up. Is like, I get it. Again, it's a trope. But it drives me crazy because he doesn't even try. He doesn't like, if it's me in that moment, instead of going, let me explain, I go, I went over there to break up with her. That's what I say instead of let me explain.
Yeah.
Let me explain. No, I don't want you to explain. Oh, come on, as she walks away. No, I stop and I go, hey, no, I was breaking up with her because I love you. But nope. Okay. Like, and so that kind of always drives me crazy in those movies. But that being said, the whole scrunchy thing and the miscommunication also feels adequately trivial and stupid and teenagery for a bunch of teenagers. Like, that does feel right for their age, where a stupid thing like her having a scrunchie that Laura Jean had and was like her favorite scrunchie and Peter had at one point, and then the ex-girlfriend got it and now Laura Jean thinks he gave it to, like, that totally makes sense for me for like, this would cause drama amongst teenagers. So.
Yeah.
So, like, I get that, and I like that. It's just that whole, like, miscommunication where it's like, just say the thing to her. She's right in front of you. Just say you are breaking up with your ex-girlfriend instead of saying, oh, no, let me explain. Oh, no, oh, okay, bye. Like, all right. Final question for Was That in the Book? Do we ever get to see the other two boys? Or, sorry, because didn't she write 5 letters?
Yes. But one of them was returned to sender.
Okay, I saw that and I thought that's what happened with one of them, but I was just double checking because she gets one. I thought that's what it was, but they don't really go over it in the back, movie.
And then there's Josh, there's Peter, there's Lucas.
Okay, and then we never see the UN kid.
Yes,
but then in the movie, sequel bait, he shows up. We get our happy ending where she and Peter walk off and kiss, and they're together and in love, and then. Somebody knocks on the door of her house. Her little sister answers, and it's John Ambrose McLaren with a letter and a bouquet of flowers. And he's there to talk to Lara Jean, credits roll, sequel bait. Fun, fine. Is that in the book? Or do we never see John Ambrose Hoyt in the book? Or Hoyt? I don't know what. McLaren. I don't know. John Ambrose Hoyt felt right to me. Felt equally snooty. I don't know. Anyways, sorry.
Actually, in the book, she does briefly interact with him when she goes to a Model UN meet. Mm-hmm. The scene with him at the door isn't in this book, but again, it may be in the sequel.
Okay, cool. All right. And then is the Return to Sender the same thing? Where one of them is just returned to Sender? Yeah, one of them
gets sent back.
Do we ever find out? Maybe in the sequel we find out what was up with that kid.
Kenny from church camp? I don't know. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. All right. That was it for Was That in the Book? Let's go on to Lost in Adaptation.
Just show me the way to get out of here, and I'll be on my way.
Is it lost?
Yes, and I want to get unlost as soon as possible.
Josh, at one point in the movie, and I don't know if there's any more of this in the book, but Josh, at one point, they're having a discussion about halfway through the movie where he comes over to talk to Lara Jean, and he's upset because he read the letter, and he wants to talk to her about how it is, and he wants to still be friends with her, but she's like, I don't know if I can be friends with you because this is all awkward and weird now, and then blah, 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 they're back and forth. And eventually Josh says, if I'd have known I'd lose both of you, I wouldn't have. And then she cuts him off and says, don't finish that sentence. Mm-hmm. And then walks away and the scene ends. And I was a little confused. Now, I think part of my confusion in this is that at this point, I was still unsure of like what Josh's deal was. If he was going to end up being
his motivations
like
were.
If he was going to end up being kind of weird and like wanting like creepy and possessive of her or not, or, you know, I didn't know what his deal was. So I didn't know if there was like more to that sentence than sort of the movie meant for there to be or not. I don't know. So what is your feeling on that scene?
I don't recall that scene being in the book.
Okay.
So I can't really speak to it from a book perspective. My best guess would be I would have never dated Margot in the first place.
That makes sense because they're arguing, the context of the scene is that they're arguing about because specifically Lara Jean says we can't go back to how it was before you were dating Margot, and we can't go back to how it was while you were dating Margot. So him saying that kind of makes sense.
Right.
I wasn't quite sure, and I said I think mainly my confusion was because I didn't trust this dude. I think the way he plays this character and like maybe the tone of his voice feels aggressive and like toxic, and I was expecting that to go somewhere.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I didn't like super get that vibe from him, but probably because I read the book. But I also think it doesn't help that there's not as much, like he doesn't get as much screen time and there's not as much tension with him.
Yeah. Because like the few times we see him in the movie, it's like that, where it's like he comes over and they like argue about stuff, and he seems kind of entitled and weird, and then he leaves. And then the next scene we see him is when Peter's over there, and he's like, "How long you guys been hanging out?"
Yeah.
And she's like, or that's even before the scene, but he's like, "How long you been hanging out?" And Peter's like, "For a while." And Josh looks all moody and angry about it and like weird. And then like a scene later in the movie, he shows up and she's like, Josh shows up because he lives next door, and Peter's leaving, and they're fighting. Laura and Peter are fighting at this point, and Laura tells him to leave, and Josh like comes to her defense and is like gonna fight Peter or something.
He's like, yeah,
and
man,
every instance of Josh that we get in the movie until the end of the movie, he feels like this weird, possessive, toxic dude who like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know what this guy's deal is. And now I think that's why I was a little confused there. All right. The other question I had for Lost in Adaptation, and this gets explained, but boy, this took a while for me to figure out what happened here. And you have a big long sentence or big long thing here to discuss this. So the hot tub scene in the movie. In the movie, she comes to the hot tub. They're hanging out. She slides into the hot tub. She's wearing a nightgown. So we can assume maybe nothing underneath it. That's important. I know that sounds like a weird offhand comment, but potentially important. She slides into the hot tub, and then she goes over and she's like seems to straddle Peter Kavinsky in the tub, and they start making out.
Yeah.
And now seemingly they just make out. Like from my first reading of the scene, They get out. She kind of gets on him, and they make out, and then the scene ends, and they made out in the hot tub. Moving on. Then the movie goes a bunch more directions with, or not directions, but the movie moves on, and then there's this thing where somebody shows her a video. Somebody took video of her in the hot tub, and she says, "Oh my God, I can't believe I accidentally made porn or something."
Yeah.
Whatever. I don't know the exact
She
line.
says a sex tape.
Yeah. I accidentally made a sex tape is the way she describes it.
Yeah.
She goes, "I can't believe I was in a sex tape or something like that." And I was like, "Oh, were they?" And then I'm like, wait, were they having sex in the tub? Because that was not what I got from the scene originally, was that they were having sex. But then I was like, I guess they technically could have been, because maybe, like, she does kind of straddle him, but like, and then I was like, well, that was in a hot tub. If so, they were not wearing protection. That was incredibly, like, and she seems smart enough to not, you know what I mean? Like, she seems like put together and like, not to say that if you have unprotected sex, you're like not put, like, I don't know, but like,
but she
seems, you know, you get what I'm saying. She seems like the kind of person who would be very cognizant of that sort of thing, especially with her dad and everything. And this is what we've seen of her character. And that we know she has condoms and all that sort of stuff. She seems like the kind of person to be very particular about that sort of thing. So I was like, whoa, wait, so were they having sex? And then I was but then eventually the movie does explain, okay, no, they were just making out. And then people assumed they were having sex, though, based on them kissing. I guess, again, it's a high school rumor. People see a video of you making out in a hot tub. Maybe they scream because of the context of the trip. They assume you're having sex. I was just very confused by all of this. What is going on in the book?
Oh, right. So, yeah, I want to talk about this because it was so sloppily done. This was the biggest problem that I had with the movie.
Okay, I'm glad, because I felt...
So there's no video in the book. Nobody takes a video and it doesn't get passed around, nothing like that. Someone who obviously like saw them or knew that they were both down in the hot tub starts a rumor that they had sex in the hot tub, and it takes off like wildfire because high school.
Yeah.
And now I understand why the movie wanted to add that element of like, oh, somebody took video and posted it on social media, like to make it current and topical and whatever, but like they did a bad job.
Yeah.
They did a really bad job.
Yeah.
Not only because like with her dialogue, it was confusing.
Yeah.
Like obviously it was confusing to you.
Yeah. I mean, it does, to be clear, not everything has to be immediately clear in a movie. Like, they do clear it up. Like, eventually it becomes clear that they didn't have sex and that this is just like a rumor based on the video. And so I got there in the end. It took me a minute, and I felt a little like, wait, what? Like, it kind of pulled me out of the movie, and that I was confused.
Well, no,
you know
but
it
was kind of weird that she would refer to it as a sex tape.
Yeah,
like I felt like that was kind of a weird thing for a teenager to say.
I think that's it. Because like it was weird because she would have immediately been like, if she saw that video and people are passing this around, her first reaction in that moment where she says like, "I can't believe I made a sex tape," would have been, "We weren't even having sex."
Exactly.
Like that's would have been what she would have said. You know what I mean? Like, we were just kissing or something like that. Like, that would have been her reaction. And then I would have been like, okay. But...
And I also feel like maybe the people who wrote this didn't quite understand how Instagram works. Because... I mean, I think it's likely that she would know or at least be able to figure out who posted it.
Yeah.
Because,
right?
like, well, most
it's
people
on Instagram,
have...
right? Yeah.
Right, because you can see the account that posted it. And now, to be fair, there's a chance that, like, maybe
somebody
she
made
doesn't...
an anonymous
Somebody makes an anonymous account, but I still feel like you could probably ask around and figure out whose fake Instagram that is. But also, like, then they just, like, sweep it away immediately with, like, there's a line... There's like, they throw it away with this line of like, Margot sent an anonymous email to Instagram. That's not a thing.
Yeah, the anonymous email.
Not, like, you can report stuff, sure, but you don't anonymously email a social media platform.
Here's what I think that is, and that I've thought on it. I think this is that particular moment with Margot sending the email and saying, I sent it, and explicitly saying awkwardly, I sent an anonymous email to Instagram, and they're going to pull it down because it's child porn or whatever. even when it's not. What I think the movie is doing, and kudos for them. I think they could have done it better, maybe, but I think this is what they're going for. Is they're so they know their audience is, at least to some extent, teenagers, young teens, that sort of thing. I think this is like a PSA. I'm not even kidding. No. Like, I think this is like, hey, if somebody puts a video on YouTube, if somebody sneakily records a video of you and puts it on Instagram and you don't want it out there, email them or send them an anonymous email. Have your sister or your, you know what I'm saying? I think this is supposed to be a scene where young kids, young girls in particular, can watch this scene and go, oh, I can do that. You know what I'm saying? Which I think is a good thing to do. Like, to put that idea in a kid's head that, hey, I remember in that movie that her older sister emailed Instagram and they took that embarrassing video of her down or whatever. Right. And so I think that's what the movie's going for in that particular moment. Again, it feels really like, to us as like adults, we're like, what? That's really awkward and clumsy, and the way it's worded feels very, because it feels like I felt like I was getting a PSA. Like, I was like, what is happening here?
I mean,
like, she could have just turned to the camera and been like, did you know that if an embarrassing video of you that you don't want on the internet's out there, you can just email Instagram and have them,
I just feel like, okay, no, I agree. I think that probably is what they were trying to do, and I agree that that is a good message to put out there.
Yeah.
But I also think that they should have used the correct terminology
yeah.
and been like, okay, we reported it.
Yeah.
It's sexually explicit, and it's also features a minor.
Right.
So it violates their guidelines, so they're going to take it down.
Yeah. Exactly.
They should have done it like that.
Yes, I don't disagree with that.
Because your PSA doesn't do any good if you don't explain how to actually do the thing.
And maybe that's a bit of like them writing down where they feel like if they say it that technically the kids won't make sense or something. Whereas if they say I emailed, but that doesn't make sense because kids. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
See that's
why I say this was so sloppily done.
No, for sure it was. I like I said, I think they're going for like a good idea there. When I thought about it afterwards, because in the moment I also like chuckled along with you. I was like, "What is happening right now?" But I think
Let me just email Instagram.
I think they were trying to address an actually like topical and prevalent problem of
I agree.
Teenager at a party and something whatever happens and this video goes everywhere and not knowing what to do about it. This movie's saying, hey, you can do something about it.
Yeah.
I think that's what they're going for. So, okay. Anyways, that was our Lost in Adaptation. Let's move on to Better in the Book.
You like to read?
Oh, yes. I love to read.
What do you like to read?
Everything.
Right off the bat, I was not loving how Lara Jean seemed like much more soupy over Josh right away. Because, like, part of the idea in the book is that her feelings for him are old. And they're supposed to be, like, brought back to the surface. Like, with the catalyst of Margot dumping him.
Yeah.
And her, like, being kind of, like, aghast.
Yeah.
That she would dump someone like Josh. And then that's all like kind of brought back to the surface. Yeah. But it's one of the bigger indications that her feelings for him like aren't quote unquote real.
Right. Yeah. That makes sense.
So like having it start off with her like Josh.
That is hard to do in a movie, but yeah.
Yeah. I feel like there was some minor character assassination on Margot in this movie.
Okay.
Like she is supposed to be like the responsible pseudo parent, but I thought the movie kind of painted her as like a nagging stick in the mud.
Little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't get that a ton, but a little bit. I definitely I think we didn't get enough time with her to see why, because at the end of the movie, when she shows up for Christmas, Lara Jean's like over the moon that she's back.
Yeah.
Whereas it didn't get as much of a vibe of their relationship.
Yeah.
To get that out of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I do get that, but I think the movie could have spent a little more time in the first 20 minutes showing us their relationship a little bit more. They do a little bit, but I think a little bit more to kind of see how close they are and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Would have been good.
Yeah, and the movie goes with like the clean your room thing.
Yeah.
I think if they had done it
Clean your room.
closer to like, because what the book does is like makes it clear that Margot kind of like keeps the household running smoothly.
Yeah.
So she like does the grocery shopping and she like plans dinner and that kind of thing. And then like throughout the book we get like little things here and there of like, Lara Jean forgot to defrost the chicken, so I guess we're having pizza tonight.
Right.
Which I felt like made Margot come off a little bit. I don't know, the whole like clean your room thing to me.
Clean your
did
room
not
has been
paint
forever
her
spoiled by Jordan Peterson for
in
me.
a positive light.
We don't even want to get into that, but anyways. You know what's funny? You say the we're having pizza tonight.
Yeah.
That line's in the movie.
Yes.
But it's in relation to like
when she gets mad
Yeah.
about Lara Jean liking Josh.
Yeah, but they don't
Kitty
mention
says
the
it.
chicken, right?
No.
Okay. Because I remember that line stuck out to me, and I was like, "But why?" Because
I don't know.
you're upset. I
Because
guess
she's mad.
Yeah,
so I
I
guess
was
she's
like-
not going to cook now.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah.
But they don't set her up as being the one that cooks, so it doesn't really work.
because her dad's always cooking. So
Yeah.
I was okay.
So in the book, in the movie, the reason that her and Peter kiss in 7th grade is because they were playing Spin the Bottle, and she kisses him. In the book, they're hanging out
Well,
at
they
a
kind of kiss each other, but yeah.
yeah, they're hanging out at a friend's house, and they're like the last two there, so they're like alone in the basement together, and he just like kisses her out of nowhere, which I liked a little bit better.
Really,
Yeah.
I really liked what the movie did with that.
I don't hate the spin the bottle thing. I thought maybe it was a little bit more indicative of like his character.
Yeah, well, I guess my point is that I like what the movie does with her, with the spin the bottle thing, with the motivations for why Jen doesn't
that does come back in the book, because Jen does end up like thinking that it was Lara Jean who kissed Peter instead of the other way around.
Yeah.
Which to me was also like kind of indicative of her character, that like she would get this wrong idea and then like latch onto it.
See, what I liked about it in the movie, the way they, especially based on how the fact now knowing that it's different in the book, what I think the movie does that I think is really effective with that moment, by having it be a spin the bottle thing where Lara Jean, they both kind of kiss each other, she like actively engages in it. You know what I mean? Like she's an active participant. She agrees to do it. She's like, let's spin the bottle. I gotta kiss him, and then kisses him. Is that I like that it I think it's an interesting and fun message. Not fun. It's an interesting and important. I use fun too much sometimes when I don't mean fun. It's an interesting and important message in regards to you're always the hero in your own story.
Okay.
And that I think it's a good message to give to younger or to especially to younger people, to everybody, straight up everybody, honestly, but just especially to instill it in younger children, is that, you know, so this person who's like her rival in school, who hates her and she hates him, Lara Jean hates Jen and Jen hates Lara Jean, and they've never gotten along for a long time. They used to be friends, but now they don't get along at all. And Lara Jean has always put that burden completely on Jen, is that it's her fault that we don't get along. It's her fault that we don't get along because I was playing Spin the Bottle and I kissed a boy that it was Spin the Bottle. It's not even, but the movie puts it back. And I think that scene's a really good scene and a really well done scene where Jen puts it back. Well, the acting's mediocre by some people, but that's the acting in that scene's not amazing, but the overall scene's good. Is that Jen puts it back on Lara Jean and is like, you kissed the boy I liked. You knew I liked him. Mm-hmm. And Lara Jean's like, well, it was Spin the Bottle. What? And Jen's like, yeah, but you still did it.
No, I
like that moment of Lara Jean having to then confront the fact that, okay, maybe I'm not, like, maybe this isn't just all on Jen. Like, our are not getting along. Like, maybe I did do something wrong to some extent. Not, like, maybe I should reflect on that a bit and think, like, maybe I should have said to her at some point over the last 6 years, hey, I'm sorry I kissed the boy you liked. Because the movie kind of makes it seem like she hasn't even ever addressed it with her. Like,
yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And to have her self-reflect on it and be like, hey, I'm sorry that, I knew you liked him, and it was spin the bottle, and, I kind of felt obliged, but I shouldn't have, or if I did, I'm sorry that I did that, and that it, made you upset and that sort of thing. Like, I like that, again, sort of, taking into account the fact that, in your story, you feel like you're right all the time because everybody feels that way about themselves all the time. But then putting that back on her and being like, maybe not. You weren't perfectly innocent in everything you've ever done. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I like that element of it.
No, I agree with you. And I could be convinced on this plot point. There was just something about like the way that it played out in the book that was like sweet to me.
Yeah. And I haven't read the book, so I'm only arguing from the movie's perspective here. I haven't read the book, so.
So the first time that Lara Jean kisses Peter, and the way that plays out in the movie is that like she grabs him while they're on the track, and like rolls him over and kisses him
to get Josh to leave.
To get Josh to leave.
Yeah.
So the way that plays out in the book is that he's coming down the hallway. And Josh is like, he has the letter in his hand and is trying to like confront her about this letter, and she doesn't know what to do. And she sees Peter coming down the hallway and like launches herself into his arms and kisses him.
Yeah.
Which, the way that the movie did it was cute.
Yeah.
But I think that the way that it happened in the book would have been fun to see.
Yeah.
She just like, it's literally described as she just like flings herself at him.
Yeah. Yeah, you can imagine that moment in the movie, like her seeing him, and you can do like a dramatic. And this could play into what we talked about earlier with the surreal element of it. Yeah. It could play into like a slow motion, almost like a war scene.
Yeah.
Like she sees him and it goes into slow mo, and she like and looks around and sees Peter, and then like she's running and like people like somebody falls and there's like papers flying through the air in the background. You know what I mean? Like they could play that up, and then she runs and jumps like an explosion went off behind her or whatever and lands, and you could do funny stuff with it that could heighten the moment, and then Could be fun.
The movie made a lot of cuts. Obviously, it cut a lot of stuff with Josh.
Yeah.
It also cut two really pivotal scenes, I think, that were very important to Peter and Lara Jean's relationship. It cut Halloween. There's a whole scene where they like dress up and go to school. And it skipped the estate sale. So in the book, Peter's mom runs like a resale antique shop. And at one point he has to go to an estate sale to try to grab up some like furniture before like the rival antique shop gets it. And she goes with him. And they have like this like little mini adventure together, and it's really cute. That one honestly is the more important scene than Halloween, I think, now that I'm thinking on it. But to me, those were both important pivotal scenes in like the development of their relationship. Josh kisses Lara Jean in the book, which was kind of an important turning point for her realizing that she doesn't like him anymore, at least not like that.
Yeah.
And also a much better reason for Margot to be upset with Lara Jean at the end, because when the three of them are arguing, it comes out that like Peter's like, you tried to kiss her, and I'm not cool with that.
Yeah.
And then Margot's like, wait a minute, hold the fuck up.
What?
Something random that I enjoyed in the book were all the descriptions of Lara Jean's outfits. She does look very cute in the movie, but I don't think her clothes measured up to the descriptions that were in the book.
There you go.
Lots of adorable descriptions of outfits. I was into it.
Yeah. We get a little bit, they try to give us a taste of that in the movie with them talking about her boots in the first scene and that sort of thing. And she definitely wears different kind of quirky outfits at times, but.
And, the hot tub plot thread we already talked about, but it was
A little
sloppy
in the movie.
A little sloppy.
All right, let's move on. Better in the movie.
My life has taught me one lesson, Hugo, and not the one I thought it would. Happy endings only happen in the movies.
Now, I did say that I did not like her seeming like super like goo-goo-eyed over Josh right off the bat, but I do think that starting with a fantasy sequence is an interesting idea. It's a fun idea. And I also liked her
the movie, just to clarify. Sorry, just to clarify on that, the movie is, or are you getting to that? Oh no, in the movie, the fantasy scene, they're like, in case you haven't watched it or whatever, it's like they're in a field and it's like a romance novel.
Yeah, and
type
it's
of thing. Her
and Josh.
Yeah.
And I don't hate her imagining like fantasy versions of Josh and Peter, which happens in the beginning. The movie doesn't follow through with it, but I'm hoping maybe that was purposeful. Yeah. That like as she starts to like live more in real life, she doesn't need the fantasy versions of them anymore. And I also liked it as an indication of like when she starts to have feelings for Peter and like the fantasy version of Josh kind of just disappears.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's true.
I think aging up Kitty was a good call. She's around 11 in the movie. She's around 9 in the book. And in the book, she's kind of bratty and annoying.
Yeah.
So even though she's kind of tropey, like to me, it was nice to have a character that was just fun and like pleasant to watch interact on the screen at all times.
There's a reason those tropes exist is because they're fun.
Yeah.
And it's a fun trope. It is tropey and at times a little like, but it's fun. She's a fun character. Right. I really liked her
and
overall.
Like to give an indication of how much they changed her character. So in the book, it is her that sent the letters. Spoilers.
Yeah.
It's Kitty who sent the letters.
This is the same in the movie.
But in the movie, she does it because she wants Lara Jean to like get out there.
Get out there, yeah. Live
in
her
the
life.
book, she does it out of spite because she's mad at her.
Yeah. See, that makes sense. Like that feels like that aged character. Whereas her being like, we're sitting here on a Saturday night watching Golden Girls. I canceled plans. You need to get a life. It's not a thing an 11-year-old says to their older, like, yeah, you know what I mean? But again, it is fun. It's fun.
Yeah. I liked the plot point with Jen taking the scrunchie. It is trivial enough to be something that would be a big deal in high school, but I think it's also a good like visual cue to come back to. It's kind of sort of a smoking gun, sort of a red herring. Yeah. We had a somewhat increased relationship with Lucas, who was her crush who turns out to be gay. Yeah. In the movie, we get to hang out with him like at least a little bit more than we do in the book.
Yeah, he's in a few scenes.
Yeah, although I did think that the movie kind of like glossed over that a little bit. Like all of a sudden, he was like just hanging out with her and Chris.
Yeah, I thought that was, well, and even in that moment, or at the party, he just like walks up and is like hugging Chris, and I'm like, all right, I guess they're friends. I don't know. Yeah, whatever.
I also liked giving Lara Jean and her dad a scene together. I thought it was sweet. It's not something that's in the book at all. Like the book doesn't really do much with like the father-daughter relationship. Her dad's just kind of like in and out of various scenes. Yeah. So I thought that was sweet. And last thing, big thing, and I don't think this happened in the movie. I did not notice it. In the book, Lara Jean often refers to Josh as Joshy, which I think is supposed to indicate that they like knew each other as kids. Yeah, but it's so cringy.
Yeah, I don't think that was one of those things that I don't think would persist. Yeah, into teenagedom. No. You know what I mean? Like, even if you called it maybe with parents, but like I think with friends. Like I'm trying to think. I don't think I had any friends who. There was nobody I was friends with that I had a weird like little kid nickname with that persisted. Yeah. Like that's like because Joshy is in particular like a little kid nickname.
Yeah, it's very cutesy. I cringed every time I read it, so I was glad that they didn't do that.
Does not do it. Let's do it. Movie. What did the movie nail? Let's talk about it.
As I expected, practically perfect in every way.
A couple things. The cupcake scene where she answers the door with flour all over her face, making cupcakes.
And then she gets forced to go to a party.
Yes, that all plays out pretty much just right. Peter and Kitty's relationship. Now, it's obviously not exactly the same since they made some changes to Kitty, but they still have the same kind of like instant
connection,
instant connection, together. Camaraderie, and the really relationship is just like really cute.
Yeah.
And it is one of the very endearing things about Peter in the book as well as in the movie, is his relationship with Kitty.
Yeah.
Now this is kind of it is a thing that the movie nailed, but it also isn't. So Lara Jean wears a necklace throughout the entire movie that's like a gold locket with
I noticed
diamond
it.
starburst.
I definitely noticed it.
And that specifically is in the book. But in the book, she doesn't have it yet. She it's something at a store that she always admires. It's at Peter's mom's antique store, actually. And then near the end of the book, we find out that it isn't in the store anymore because her dad was going to get it for her for Christmas. And then he was like, oh, but it wasn't there when I went to go get it.
Peter got it
I'm assuming that it shows up in one of the sequels and Peter's going to give it to her.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to see if the movie,
if they do anything with that,
the movie
she
will
has it,
I know she already has it. So and I'm sure that was supposed to be an Easter egg for book readers, right. Seeing her wear the necklace, and I don't know for sure that it comes back in one of the sequels. Right. I'm just assuming it does, since they made a point of bringing it up at the end of the book.
Yeah. All right, that was it for Movie Nailed It. We got a few more odds and ends, and then we'll get to Katie's final verdict. Katie, I have a few notes here. Mm-hmm. Early on in this movie and throughout, the audio quality was a little rough at times. I don't know if you noticed this.
I didn't really notice.
I noticed this because I watched a lot of movies, in particular bad movies. And this wasn't a bad movie. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that there were some moments like the airport when they're in the terminal, when they're sending Margot off on the plane.
Yeah.
Some of those moments and some of the moments early on, the dialogue that was not perfectly picked up, and the audio was a bit rough for a movie like this. I would expect that more of a much lower. I don't know to be fair, I don't know what the budget on this movie was, but that struck me more as much more of a way indie film, way super indie film type of thing.
Were you watching it with
I had headphones on for a while, and I took headphones off, and I noticed it both.
So, and you were watching it on your computer.
I was on my computer. When I noticed it the most, I was wearing headphones. I had because
I just watched it on the TV and I didn't notice.
I have pretty nice headphones, and I noticed it most in my headphones. But I took my headphones off eventually and had just my speakers on my computer on, and I still noticed it at times a little bit. It wasn't as obvious, but still. So the headphones may have been part of it, but it did feel a little, not the best. But
I had a note about this movie definitely suffers from they're in school, but they're never in class.
Oh, yeah. Never. Literally. Never. I don't think we ever see them in a classroom. Ever.
But the specific, thing where I first noticed it, I was like, damn, how long are their lunch periods at this school? Because she goes, she's in the cafeteria, and then, she wanders to the library, and then she wanders outside to, the football field. And I'm like, our lunch periods when I was in high school were 20 minutes long.
Yeah.
They were not long enough to wander all over the whole damn school. Yeah.
Ours were 40.
Really?
I think.
I feel like you went to school 30, in a fantasy 40. Land.
I think they were at least 30
We had
minutes.
20-minute lunch periods, and we were not allowed to go outside.
We couldn't go outside. We could go... We had a courtyard that we could go into, from what I remember.
We did not have a courtyard. But we definitely could not go to the football field because it was 2 blocks away.
And you could potentially leave if you... I don't remember exactly how that worked. I know people used to be able to. I don't remember if we still could when I was in high school. Like go to like get lunch. Yeah.
When I was like a
Like go to fast
freshman,
food or whatever.
seniors were allowed to leave during lunch,
seniors
but they did away with that rule.
See, I
while
felt like that
in
was
school.
a similar thing, but I do not remember.
Yeah.
If anybody that's listening went to high school with me, I'm sure there's somebody.
No, but we definitely had very short lunch periods.
There's no way ours were 25 minutes, I don't think. I think ours were at least 30 minutes.
Part of the problem was that my school was overpopulated. And
so you had like 8 lunch periods or whatever?
Yeah, we had like 5 lunch periods because there were too many students.
I think we had 3, so.
No one would approve like a tax measure to get a new high school, so our cafeteria was tiny.
Yeah.
So we had 20-minute lunch periods.
That sucks.
Yeah. I ate a lot of food really fast.
Yeah,
and
healthy.
often did not eat at all because there was no time.
There you go. That's not good.
Thanks, America.
This is America. My only other note is just positive things. I thought Lana Condor, who plays Laura, I assume Condor is how it's spelled like the bird. I don't know how you pronounce it, but I thought she was great. I honestly, really, I thought all the acting, other than I think Jen maybe at times was not great, but I thought overall, although to be fair, in the one scene in particular with Jen that I thought the acting wasn't good, her and Lana I didn't think were good. Maybe it was just something in the scene wasn't working. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe the writing in that scene. I don't know. Whatever.
And that was the scene where
in
she
the bathroom where she confronts her.
bathroom.
It felt weird to me. It just didn't feel natural. Like it was so much of the other acting felt really natural, if not older than it was supposed to be, but still felt really natural, really, really good. I was like really blown away by her because I'd never seen her in anything before. And Peter, the guy who plays Peter, whatever, Kavinsky, same thing. Everybody, I honestly thought all the acting was really, really good. It blew me away. And like ultimately I was just like, it was like I said earlier, it's just a really sweet movie. I think the acting really carries it. Like I think the writing is passable but not amazing was my kind of take on it over the course of the film. Like it had its moments of good writing. The overall adaptation or the overall narrative was good, not great. Like good but not amazing. But the acting and the scene to scene moments really kind of worked for me. And I thought the two leads, like their chemistry was so cute and so like well. Again, I think it kind of works counter. Their chemistry kind of works counter to the narrative I wanted or was expecting, and how quickly their chemistry works. But overall, like just as a fun rom-com, like I enjoyed watching the film, and I liked it. Like again, it wasn't like a great movie. Like I wasn't like, wow, that was something. Like to compare, like Sing Street. Because I was thinking about like trying to think of another like teen romance. Like Sing Street, I would say is like a masterpiece of a film. Whereas I would not remotely qualify this as like a masterpiece of a film, but I would say it is a good film. But Sing Street, the acting in it's really good, but it's also just an incredibly brilliant script, I think, and like what they do with it is just really well done. It's really tight and just perfectly executed. Whereas this one, it's not perfectly executed, but I think the acting is on par with anything in Sing Street, and I think the performances are just as good. It's just not quite as well done of a story, I think. But.
No, I would maybe slightly counter that Sing Street isn't a rom-com the same way that this is a rom-com.
No, true. Absolutely true. Yeah, it's not. But I'm thinking like it's a teenage romance comedy. Like, it's not a rom-com necessarily. It's like more of a musical rom-com kind of. Yeah. But yeah, it's if you haven't seen Sing Street, go fucking watch Sing Street. It's amazing. But I was just trying to think of something else, but like that. But it was really sweet, and I was like, yeah, fun. It was a nice little movie. But my opinion doesn't matter. It's you. Final verdict.
Now, are you ready for your sentence?
Sentence? But there must be a verdict first.
Sentence first, verdict afterward.
All right, so the movie was super cute, but I have to go with the book this time.
Okay.
I think the book had just some extra stuff first of all, with just Lara Jean and Peter that I think allowed their relationship to develop in a way that felt a little deeper. and like a touch more realistic. And I think the movie can slightly get away with it because of the chemistry of the two actors. But I also think if that element had not been present, this movie would not have worked as well.
Oh, no. No.
And the movie also had more with Josh and the dynamic between him and Laura Jean.
You mean the book?
Yes, the book had more with Josh and that dynamic, and then the kind of love triangle, quote unquote.
Yeah.
The book, I think, also did more justice to the relationship amongst the three sisters. Movie did okay with Lara Jean and Kitty, but Margot kind of got shoved wayside.
Yeah.
And then the book also showed them like fighting and teasing and sniping each other, just like spoilers, actual sisters do.
Yeah. Which we get a little bit with Kitty and Laura Jean.
A little bit, but not much. Now, I did like the movie. I can definitely think of teen rom-coms that I like more.
Yeah.
But it was cute and it was fluffy and it was a pleasant way to spend an afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to say this too. If you really liked this movie, you will like the book. Like if you just watched the movie and you were already a big fan, it is well worth your time to check out the book. You're going to like it a lot.
There you go. All right. That was it for To All the Boys I've Loved Before. Katie. What's next? Wait! Before she does that, if you could do us a giant favor, rate and review us on any of the places that you download our podcast. I think mainly iTunes. Go to iTunes, give us a 5-star review, write a little review. We're up to almost 60 now.
Nice.
Doing pretty good. I think we were at 58 last time I checked, but that would be fantastic. You can also follow us on all the social media, Facebook, Instagram, Goodreads, Twitter, and Reddit, technically. Haven't posted a thing there, but you can post. If you go onto Reddit, you can post on our subreddit and be like, oh, I want to talk about this. You can do that. It's allowed. I just haven't posted on there in a while, but you can. And if you do, I'll see it and I'll respond. So Katie, what's next?
Next, we're doing a classic from our childhood. We're going to talk about Holes.
Yes. We're going to have to figure out what to do about this because I've read this book 3 times, I think.
Yes. We're going to have somebody on who has not read the book.
We're either going to have to have somebody on, or we're just going to discuss it. Yeah, we'll have to figure out what to do about that because, I have absolutely read this book. Maybe we can find a fellow podcaster somewhere that we can have call in who hasn't read it. I don't know. I'm just thinking.
I was going to ask Jenna if she's read it.
Oh, Jenna would work too. We could get Jenna back. That would be fine. Because she's here now, so she could easily make a trek to the studio. And that would be fun. But yes, Holes, the 2004 Shia LaBeouf. I don't know. I'm just guessing on the
somewhere
Shia
in
LaBeouf
there.
Classic. This will be interesting because, I read the book first several times, then saw the movie. I remember this was in my wheelhouse of when I was like, this isn't exactly like the book. I think I still liked it, but I remember thinking like, I remember that at the time. I don't think I'll feel that way now, knowing how I've changed. But Holes, cool. That's up next. We'll have a prequel episode before then, and until that time, guys, gals, non-binary, and everybody else,
keep reading books,
keep watching movies,
and keep being awesome.